inclusivity framework that we touched upon last day, and hopefully everyone's had an opportunity to reflect on last day's meeting and start thinking, giving thought to, okay, did we get it right in terms of the framework? Because that's really where we want to drill into today. And of course, providing additional opportunity for networking and meeting some different people on this action table is important because we got lots of work ahead of us, and good work, exciting. And then another opportunity for us today is to really dig in and look at some celebrations and respect, and start doing some mapping and planning and recommendations as an action table to the organization around what celebrations that we would like to put forward, so that we can behind the scenes start working on that, and as the action table providing some input and feedback to those activities. So that's pretty much what we'll spend today. And of course, we have Nicole, who is behind the scenes. She's in a different room with us today, but she's also here, and she too will be facilitating us through the agenda as well. And we'll wrap up for noon. So any questions or comments about the agenda? No? Okay, good stuff. So moving forward from that,
I think Nicole's taking over at this point with our part 2 of our member introductions.
Hi there, everyone. So because we're such a large group, what we were hoping to do is that at the beginning of this meeting as well, we're going to go back into our breakout rooms as we did just for a few minutes, so you have an opportunity to meet some different folks. So we're going to mix up the breakout rooms a little bit and have you have an opportunity to just talk a little bit about yourselves. If you want, I will also send out via chat the link to the Padlet, but I did send out the links today too. So if you haven't had a chance to fill out your Padlet with your introduction, you can do that during the next session, or you can fill it out afterwards. But this is really just an opportunity for you to get to meet a few folks, and we'll also be having breakout rooms a little bit later again for some of our discussions. So this is kind of warm you up with who you're going to be working with for our second part. So if you just bear with me for a moment, what I'm going to do is get everyone into their groups, and we'll give you a few minutes, about 10 of, I think it was like 5 to 10 minutes to kind of introduce yourselves, and we'll also have a countdown that you'll see. Okay, so we'll get you into those rooms. Let's see.
So we had a few people join us over the last couple of minutes, so welcome and good morning to those that have just joined us. We're so happy that you could make it. And we were just speaking about the ways of working, and that it's great to see so many people utilizing the technology to allow us to actually see who were actually the face behind the name. So that's fantastic. So thanks everyone for that. So hopefully everyone had a nice opportunity to spend some time with your small and mighty condensed version of family or friends this weekend over the Thanksgiving, and got some time in to rest and recover before we, dig into the winter months. Yeah, good. So definitely some shifting of the weather going on, that is for sure.
That's a good thing though too.
Yeah. Beautiful with all the colors.
Yeah, great hiking.
So I see some chat. Let's take a look. Okay, so.
Okay. All right. And away you go.
So if anyone, in addition to Leah's having challenges with audio, by all means, feel free to dial in, or if we need to alternatively turn off some video, we can do that as we go along, because it would be important for us to, continue to participate and overcome the technology issues.
So Kendra, does
Okay.
that mean it worked?
It worked. I just didn't go into a breakout room. I am recording too. I don't know if you were recording as well, but I just started in case.
Okay, thank you. Because
Which
I
is
totally forgot.
surprising because I can record from my own personal thing, which is weird.
I think I changed some of the settings.
Okay.
I changed some of the settings. So let's see, breakout room. So I'm just looking at the breakout room. So I've got breakout room 1 has got Cheryl, Corrine, Eric, Holly.
Mm-hmm.
This is really, okay, so doing the breakout rooms, I'm finding it's difficult. I had a list of who I was gonna put where.
Yeah.
But it's I don't know how you did it that day. Oh my gosh, this was frantic.
I know. We need to figure out that pre-assignment because I tried to test it during the huddle on Thursday too, and it created the rooms but doesn't put the people in, which I don't understand. And I did it through the CSV file.
Wow.
That time, so I don't know. Maybe I need to call Zoom and see what they say. Because it would definitely be way better to pre-assign.
Yeah, because like right now it's not as balanced as I would have liked.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got to jot down all the names again too, because they're not exactly the names I thought I was going to end up with.
Right. This part is recording too, just so we know. Our conversation right now.
Oh no, okay, sorry.
Because it's the main room, I think.
Okay, so. Would you like to join a breakout room, Leah? Still having troubles. Okay. Oops. Okay. Everyone's just gone to their breakout rooms for a few minutes, so we're going to give them a little bit of time for that. And then, see, this goes for 15 minutes. So we've got another about 5 minutes or so we'll give them. It's actually pretty cool. I've been able to jump in and out of the breakout rooms. It's kind of cool. Just gonna check in on one more group. I'll be back in a bit. Okay, breakout rooms.
Now we're back.
So I'm not sure, Susan, if you caught what I said last time. I have to leave. Unfortunately, I have another conflict. So about 11:40, I have to drop off.
Okay, that's okay, Ann. And what we can do if we need to, we can circle back with you
Yeah.
on anything that is important to catch you up.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, so
We
people
all
are
back?
just coming back. So it looks like we have a few more. There we go. And all the celebrities are returning. Okay, great.
So last week we touched a little bit on our diversity and inclusion framework. And I'm not sure if anybody's had a chance to add any of their thoughts to the Padlet. And we will break out again to discuss the celebrations and respect aspect of the framework. Are there any thoughts right now with regards to any of our pillars of the framework? So you raise your hand either using the tools or physically.
Oh, great.
So Karan, yeah.
Sorry, I'm still looking for the raise your hand function, which I've seen in other countries. You need it. So I went old school. Thank you for that.
Old school works.
Okay, perfect. So the one thing that keeps coming back for me when I look at this framework is just the lessons that I learned in going through my D&I certification with the Canadian Center for Diversity and Inclusion, because they really harp on And I think rightfully so, the collecting of data as a starting point, because that allows for the establishing of a baseline, and then ability from understanding your baseline of, you know, quantitative data and qualitative data about how people feel about, you know, whether an organization is inclusive, to then identify gaps and address those in the way that you look at your policies and in the way that you set up your celebrations and other and everything else that you do. But that absent that baseline number understanding, it's hard to measure progress, right, as you move forward, but also to know what gaps you're trying to fill. And so though I'm really happy to see the health equity and employee census as a pillar of the framework, because I think that's absolutely right. I don't know that it's meant to be linear, but in my mind, my own mind at least, you know, sort of understand that to be the foundation from which we then can go in an informed way and do everything else, and then measure our progress at achieving those objectives we set based on that data. So I just throw that out there for discussion.
I will add to that, or just echo everything that you're saying, that the data collection, I think, is probably why we're all here, because we all do bring different voices. So it is a good start. And just definitely to keep this momentum for data collection, especially in, and then we can certainly add partnerships with that. So at some point, they'll all definitely work together. Is anybody else who can add to this in data collection and quantitative, qualitative data and how it can work for us?
So go ahead, Cheryl.
I was just going to say, I feel like within this, and maybe it's a part of this framework, and it kind of goes along with the, I guess, in the census data, truly understanding what our community consists of, and sort of the needs and focus of the community, because at the end of the day, those are our clients, or, you know, the people who we're serving and are using our service. So I feel like in terms of this committee making a difference for the patients and families, it would be important to know, sort of have that sense of who the community is and what their needs are, and then making sure that we're you know, informing the policies and the practices and all of those things, and then creating those partnerships so that we can ensure that we're providing sort of the best care and service to those people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Great. Okay. So there's still some, Leah sharing that she's having some audio trouble. So Leah, if there's things that you would like to contribute, by all means, you can text me or to the chat.
I think Gail had raised her hand.
Mm-hmm. I think, you know, collecting this data is, I mean, it's foundational, certainly. And I think what I think of when, you know, we're going to collect data on our diverse population. I want us to go deeper than that and remember that within that diverse population, there are diverse needs, right? And so understanding who our population is vitally important. But I think also understanding, you know, according to culture and according to faith and those kinds of things, that it goes deeper than just who somebody is, right? So just keeping in mind that there's also diverse needs, I think is vitally important, and goes a little bit deeper than sort of the linear piece, right? To go, yeah.
Okay, great points. I see technology in use. Rana and Eric. So go ahead, Rana.
Thank you. I had the chance to look quickly at the website and check the vision, the mission, a little bit on the strategic plan. And in addition to all what Corinne, Cheryl, and Gail mentioned about data, collecting data, I also would like to add a little bit about on that front, because if in order to understand more about the systemic barriers, it's important to identify what are these barriers, how are they affecting Joe Brandt hospital employee or patients. Could it be like the turnover rate or productivity performance? Is it affecting that? Is it affecting customer satisfaction? Is there any employee surveys? And so forth. From there, I feel it would be easier to move on if we get some more insight of the current situation and identify the gaps.
Yeah.
For those that can't hear, we're just having a emergency code. So, okay, go ahead, Rana. Please continue.
Yeah. So based on that, it would be easier to see how to move on, whether to review recruitment practices, promotion practices, and other the celebration and respect. What's there today, and why is it important? What is it we need to look into to have more diversity in that area? I mean, I also noticed on the website, I could have missed, but I didn't see diversity and inclusion can come within the values. I mean, the values are compassion, accountability, respect, and excellence. Maybe you would think of adding that into your values or performance system appraisal. And one more thing quickly, something that really got my attention, that in the strategic plan, Joe Brandt is looking to become a leading practice, community teaching hospital. So definitely it will open up to many health practitioners, isn't it?
Yes.
So
yes.
Diversity and inclusion is really important to embrace or to action these plans.
That's so impactful. Ron, it's Alexa speaking. It's sort of like you've done a version of what's called an equity walk, really looking from the outside as an outsider and someone with their own diversity story at this organization that we all belong to, and truly looking to see what can be added and where we can improve. So thank you for that. I like that. I think we need more of this, the equity walks amongst all of our celebrations, our policies, our practices. I think we'll move on to Eric. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you. So when I look at the framework, data and information is certainly important. From my perspective, it really informs then education and truth, right? And so I kind of have a mental model in my own mind, right or wrong, that education and truth can then lead to greater self-awareness and awareness of understanding and impact on others in terms of actions or language or behavior. And then hopefully that self-awareness and awareness of actions and impact to others can then move one to greater understanding, role modeling, and leadership, which then of course can then lead to common expectations, accountability, and action for improvement. So that's kind of the flow diagram that just came for me coming out of education and how important education is. I'm becoming educated every meeting and every time we get together from learning from each of you. So education and then having common understanding, I think, is so important that can lead to self-awareness and change. So those are just my observations.
Great. Thank you for sharing those. Any other hands up or comments, initial thoughts with regards to the diversity and inclusivity framework? Okay, go ahead, Catherine.
I just wanted to go back to the data collection and especially around baseline attitudes towards diversity and inclusion, where Joseph Brandt right now sits in terms of attitude, and whether it's our employees or our policies or some of our practices that we do. It'd be interesting to know how we move from that starting point.
Just capturing all the good things everyone's sharing. Great. I see we have a comment in the comment box. Okay, Cheryl. Cheryl has, I think you all see it there, she would be happy to work with myself and Alexis to bring some patient stories to the meetings. So great idea, and what our patients have experienced. And I think, and Corinne has commented, great idea. I think myself and Alexa would echo that.
Absolutely.
So that's certainly something that we'll take away and circle back with you, Cheryl, on for a future agenda.
I'm going to jump ahead to future and say that, impactful videos from these patients and families will really have, give me another word for impact.
It will really, I think, not only will it impact, but it will also allow for an experience, a different experience for those that are observing it through it, whether we use those to Eric's point around education and raising awareness about what our environment is, how it impacts one's life, and what we can potentially do and should do to change the experience while receiving care and or working here day to day. So great suggestion. So any other comments about the framework before we go? Yeah, go ahead, Manpreet.
Just to add on to what Cheryl said, I think that it would also be beneficial to have qualitative kind of surveys for the employees of JBH to share their lived experiences at JBH. And I think that would really impact other employees here who may read through these stories and not realize that certain people don't feel included. So, and that also goes to kind of figuring out what the attitude is.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think, Manpreet, we would all agree based on our last meeting, and that we're all aligned on our values and what we're looking to achieve from this important action table. It's about everybody, and that inclusivity extends from patients' family to our employees and one another in our interactions every day, and right from the time you're in the parking lot to the time you leave. So definitely not losing sight of the importance of our employees, our physicians, our volunteers, and everyone that comes through our doors. And then how that translates into the message that goes out to our community about their experience with us. Or to Randy's point, what's our image out there when someone does visit our webpage? Does it reflect the diversity and inclusivity that we're looking for in our healthcare environment? So any other comments about the framework? So we've spoken about a lot about the health and equity and employee census, practice, touched on practices and policies, and loosely on celebrations and partnerships. And it's great to hear that all of those things are really coming forward and resonating in the work that we're going to be doing. They really do connect. So is there any, so in terms of the, is there anything that anyone thought when they looked it over that maybe, you know what, that they had an aha moment and thought, you know what, maybe I wonder why they didn't include X? Or do you think that the 4 pillars really capture the work, the important work that lies ahead? Any thoughts? Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it probably may be included in there, but I think another important piece is also sort of if we want to be sort of leaders in this, is sort of helping to educate the public as well. Because I do know that you know, while I have patient stories to share, I've also had many times where patients and families have said inappropriate, not you know, sort of nice things about staff here at the organization. And so I think it has to go both ways in terms of that education piece to the community as well. And I know for myself, when I do experience it, I do try and, you know, sort of educate them. An example of what I'm explaining is that when I say a physician's name, if it's of a multicultural background, I've had people sort of say, oh, well, you know, is their English good? And I then take the time to say, actually, the individual is Canadian, and so their English is very good. So just because someone has a diverse or a multicultural name doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, their English isn't good, and so those sort of things. So, and conversely, you know, my husband is East Indian, so if, you know, my name doesn't sort of, if someone was listening to me on the phone, they may think that I'm of a different background than I am. So I think it's sort of those education pieces that we need to help our community to understand as well. And I know the older generation, and that's what we have a lot of in our community, sort of feel as though they have a more difficulty at times with this type of
Yeah, so a great point. And I think that goes back to the education really is not just education to the within and how we do our work and how we interact with patients and families, but also how that extends as the community hospital and providing, you know, support and care to the surrounding area. And what does that mean? And how do we help shift and frame the important work in the community through removal of conscious and unconscious biases? So in all the things that we do.
Yeah. I'm going to link that to what Manpreet had said earlier, and that as frontline, that will have such meaning to the staff to know that they have that support.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's the escalation process when someone is, you know, a patient? When is it a choice and when is it a barrier? Because I have had experience where, you know, employees, you know, have been subject to, you know, biases by individuals, patients and or families, and they escalated to the patient relations or patient experience office, depending on which term. But, you know, and what's the organization's position when those types of concerns come forward, which are concerns on the behalf of the family and patients, but not necessarily concerns on the part of the hospital from a policy perspective. So I saw a few hands go up, Cheryl. You've, you know, you've percolated some thoughts there. So thanks for that. Okay, so I think I saw Gail, I saw Leah, and I may have seen. Okay, go ahead, Leah.
So thank you for being so patient with me, joining audio by phone and video here. So hopefully you can hear me all right. You know, our last meeting when we had breakout groups, we were talking a little bit about passion, and one of my things that I'm passionate about is really about belonging, feeling that you belong here as a staff member or a physician, volunteer, but also from a patient perspective that, you know, from that health equity lens, that you belong here and you're going to get the very best care. And just kind of jumping off that point that Cheryl made, is how do we create a culture of supporting each other to stand up for belonging. So just as Cheryl had that kind of tough conversation, or not so tough, but a candid conversation about what, what we stand for. I'm reflecting back on something that happened earlier this week, and it had to do with the Chief of Staff newsletter and how a correction was made based on something that was omitted, or how different positions were referenced in the letter. And, standing up like that, and in all ways across the organization, because I'm sure this happens, how we create that culture of being able to advocate for one another and what we stand for as an organization to promote belonging is going to be really important for us to consider. And I'm so touched that that's something shared amongst us all. So I just wanted to share that.
Great, thank you for that. Any other comments, thoughts about maybe something that we should look to expand or capture in the framework? Go ahead, Corinne.
I was just going to echo the thread that's been coming up both in Cheryl's comments and in Eric's. That piece around education, I think for me was missing it seemed to be sort of missing as a pillar, though it probably appears in all the different pillars itself. From a theory perspective, I think we need to be conscious of ensuring that there is the sort of unconscious bias type training, and then also the skills training to follow it up. So it's an awareness training, I guess is a better way of saying it. So I think generally the approach is you bring the awareness to the organization so we understand what the issues are, we understand, as an example, our own biases, but then you facilitate skills-based training to back it up. So an example of that would be when you're talking about recruitment and the like and how that process rolls out, you would then train your interviewers or your people that are doing the recruitment to then know how to ensure that their biases aren't or trying to mitigate their biases coming into the work that they're doing. So it has to be sort of not just that awareness level training, which acknowledges the issue and the problems, but also then a skills-based training that gives people the tools to know how to deal with that and move it forward in the organization. And I think all of that, when it's ingrained at every level, from the board and senior management to training at every level in whatever we do, if diversity and inclusion is a fundamental principle, then I think it has the effect of changing that culture in such a way that people feel supported and know that what they're dealing with won't be acceptable in the organization. That gives them the confidence to speak up or to acknowledge the issue or to say it's not right for me.
Yeah, people need tools to have those uncomfortable discussions and conversations, and know that they are backed up and safe.
Yes.
So great discussion. So thank you everyone for your contribution. I know that a few of us were taking notes, so we'll be able to use that to inform our future meetings. So we're going to shift over to celebrations and respect.
There is a chat there.
And we're going to be stepping into a chat room. What we would like to do, and I'm going to turn it over to Nicole.
Okay, so we're going to spend the last portion of the meeting today on taking a look at one aspect. So the celebrations and the respect pillar actually has two pieces to it. Part of it is celebrations. Under the respect piece, just to piggyback off a little bit of what Corinne and a few other people have mentioned, there's an education component from the leadership team right down to the staff level. And it's a great segue into our next meeting, because kind of in the plan, there is a draft corporate learning plan that has been pulled together with learning items attached to it. And what I was thinking was that at the next meeting, bringing that forward to the D&I action table before we take it to the leadership team to confirm. But it has been circulated to a few folks already, but I'd like to have some thoughts from the D&I action table. So we'll spend some time on education, leadership and staff, as well as the HR component in terms of education at our next meeting. So what we wanted to talk to you today about, or have you have a discussion around, was really around the celebrations piece. And so at the organization, one of the things that we've learned over the past few weeks, because a few of us are new, myself included, is that there actually is a corporate calendar, and there's a corporate calendar of things that we acknowledge and celebrate. And so there was somewhat of a new process that was put into place, I think it was about a year ago or so. And the corporate calendar is under the purview of the Directors Operations Committee, or DOC as they call it here. And what we would need to do is kind of submit the dates and the events that we would like to acknowledge or celebrated. So in review of the past calendar, one of the things that I had noticed was that many of the things that are on the corporate calendar, and for those of you that are JBH staff, you would have seen a few messages that came out from Eric and from corporate communications over the last few weeks, recognizing a number of different professions. And so those are, so there's a lot of professions that are recognized and individuals, but there really isn't much around celebrations of holidays or significant cultural events. We have two. Last year, there was a recognition of the Pride Month. I understand myself. I personally wasn't here for that, so I can't speak to exactly what was done. But there was a recognition and celebration of Pride Month, and then this past October we had a Spirit Day for the first Spirit Day for Orange Shirt Day back in September.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that we would like to have your thoughts on, and we'll start the conversation today, we'll continue it at our next meeting, and we'll also continue it on the Padlet, is just some considerations on, the first question would be, how do we put a framework or a filter, or how do we decide what goes on that, and what recommendations we want to make? Because, we could be celebrating something really every single day. But I think in the absence of having a true employee census or much data in terms of the health equity, we kind of need to come up with something in the absence of that data. And we don't really feel that it's something that we should wait until we can find the data to support it, but we should try to find some of those things that maybe are really important or on people's minds that we might want to add in. And so how would we decide what gets passed, or how does a request come in? And then is there anything specific to 2021 that maybe is something that we want to prioritize and make a recommendation to the organization, that is something that we should definitely add in to the calendar as a next step for us? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'll put you up back into your breakout rooms for about 10 minutes to have just an initial conversation, and then we'll come back, and again we'll reserve some time at our next meeting, because this is a big discussion, and we want to make sure that we give it the time that it deserves. But let's start the conversation today, and see how that goes. So I'm going to wait. I'll open the rooms out for everyone to head out to.
Okay, we're just all coming back in, so we'll give it a couple minutes.
Susan, I just have a couple. Susan, I've just got a couple of administrative things that I just want to go over.
Yep, and then we can take off. We can, yep, sounds great, Nicole. We maybe have one more person coming back in, but go ahead, Nicole.
Okay. I think everybody's back, it looks like. Okay, so thanks everyone. So, you know, as I mentioned, we will reserve some time in our next meeting to continue the conversation. What I will do is I do have an ask, and that is there is a Padlet set up for this particular topic. And so if you had taken any handwritten notes or if you have any thoughts, I'm going to ask that between now and our next meeting, if you can kind of add to the Padlet your thoughts and ideas. And we'll reserve some time at our next meeting to continue the conversation on respect and celebrations. Also, if you haven't had a chance to go in and do your virtual introduction, there's also that Padlet. You'll notice as well too that I did add an additional November meeting. We thought that while we have the momentum going that we would add in an extra meeting in November. So it's going to be on the 25th. We do take a break in December, so there will be no December meeting. The other thing, I've had some good news from Holly earlier today. So our website is very close to being up and running. It'll be a secure site where you will be able to receive your Padlet links, your agenda, any of the PowerPoints or the slides that we've had at the meetings. And as we mentioned, for those of you that can't make a meeting, we have been recording the main room. We can't unfortunately record the breakout rooms, but the main room discussions have been recorded, and we will post those for a period of about 45 days or so, just you know, so that people have a chance to catch up, participate in the Padlet discussions and the offline discussions when they attend. So the details for the website, I will grab them from Holly as soon as they are available, and you'll receive a separate email for that. Our next meeting is going to be on November the 4th, and that one is an afternoon meeting at 4:30. So you'll notice in the schedule, we're trying to kind of bump the meetings so that we have a couple of late afternoon ones, just to give people an opportunity to work with their schedules a little bit better. Okay.
Great, thank you, Nicole. So, so that takes us to the end of our second meeting. So exciting. So lots of great discussion. Thank you everyone for your contribution. Again, I think that we're really heading, I think we've got the right fit group action table here, and the momentum continues. So again, just want to thank Nicole for all of her behind the scenes work with Kendra, who is the name behind the faceless faceless person today. So thanks, Kendra. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy your week, and we'll see you on the 4th.